There's a long list of reasons why Maggie Ellis is qualified to speak to us this morning. She's a mother with 2 children. She's a writer. Latest book just been published the last few days. She's a speaker. She's a church leader. She's in the process of setting up a rape crisis center. But the primary reason why Maggie is qualified to speak to us this morning is that she's a lover and she's a follower. She's a lover of Jesus and she's a follower of Jesus. And I'd like you to put your hands together and welcome Maggie Ellis as she comes to speak to us.
Hi. Thank you very much. Well, our passage this morning is the passage that we've had read, but just before that, I've got to tell you something, because just before we came to Spring Harvest, it was my birthday. And for a really long time, I have wanted a bread machine. Don't ask me why. Well, I can tell you why. It's because I'm not the sort of cook who can make bread myself, because that takes much too long. But I'd love to have homemade bread that you can just shove it all in and press the buttons and it's produced. But bread machines are really expensive and I couldn't justify buying one. But anyway, I was browsing through the local paper in the bargain basement section, as you do, and I found this really cheap, brand new bread machine. So I was really excited. I phoned up and it was still there, it hadn't gone. And the woman very kindly said that she was coming over to Chichester to go to Tesco's that night and she'd drop it off for me to save me driving to her place. Now, the only problem was she didn't tell me what time she would come. I just knew it would be sometime afternoon or evening. So I get on with my day and decided near the end of the day that I'd got a bit sweaty and my hair needed a wash and whatever. So I got in the shower and I'm happily in the shower, covered in shampoo, etc. And in comes my daughter, who's 9 years old. And you have to understand, my shower is like an ensuite off our bedroom. Chloe comes in and she goes, "Mummy, the bread machine woman is on the phone." So I said, "Oh no." I said, "Go and tell Helen, who lives with us, and she'll speak on the phone." Fine. A minute later, Chloe comes back. "I got it wrong, Mummy. She's not on the phone, she's downstairs." Thinking, how can you get that wrong? But anyway, never mind. So I started to give Chloe instructions what to say and do with this bread machine woman, and it was all getting too complicated, and I'm thinking she's never going to get this right. So I said, "Chloe, just get Helen, get her to come in my bedroom, and I'll shout to her instructions what to do." Helen's an adult, you'll understand. So I'm waiting in the shower, rinse the shampoo off my hair, and I'm actually all ready to get out. But no Helen. And I'm suddenly faced with this dilemma. What do I do? If I open that shower door, she's bound to walk in. That is just my luck. That's the way life works for me. In that 1 second, will she be there, or can I afford to risk it? And I'm thinking, do I make a dash for the towel? Do I come out backwards, maybe? Because we all look the same backwards, so maybe that would be okay. And all these things are going through my head. What do I do? I've got this shower door here, and here I am inside. Don't think about that for too long. What do I do? Come on, Helen. And to my relief, I hear the door open into my bedroom, and I think, oh, thank goodness. So I shout through, and I go, and the water's still running, so I'm shouting. I'm going, "Helen, the bread machine woman's here, and I don't know if the machine's good enough or not, but get her to show you if it works, and if it seems dodgy, then don't buy it, but if it seems okay, then go ahead and just write a check, and I'll pay you back later." And I'm giving her all these instructions, and I draw a breath to realise that 2 foot away from me, through the glass door of our shower, is a strange voice of a woman sounding very nervous. A voice I don't recognise. And the bread machine woman, my daughter, has shown her right into my bathroom. I said, "Chloe, what were you thinking of?" She brings her all the way upstairs, takes her to the right bedroom door. "No, it's not just here, go right through." And we find the disciples too locked away, don't we? It says in John 20, let's have that passage open, shall we? locked away behind closed doors. When the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jews, the disciples too were locked away. They were locked away, why? Because outside were their fears, specifically the Jews. That's who their fears were around. Why? For very, very good reasons. They were fears that they had already encountered. They knew to be afraid of these people. Peter had all those experiences in the high priest's courtyard with people quizzing him and suspicious of him. Aren't you one of those disciples? Oh, no, 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 no. And then, of course, the fears were even more tangible as they watched those Jews crucify the one that they loved. They weren't stupid at all to be hidden away behind locked doors, even though they were trapped. There were fears that they had encountered, they'd looked in the face of, and they were afraid to come out. And I guess if we're honest, there will be fears in our hearts too, of what we already know. Fears that have challenged you already in your life, in the weeks or months before you came here. Fears that you go home to, fears that you know that are familiar friends to you. And I want just to simply ask you this morning, what are these fears and pressures for you? Talking to different people on site over this week, I know for some of you it's challenges in your marriage. I know for others it's challenges in your church situations. I know for others of you it's pressures at work that you go home to, you go back to. So fears that you already know. But secondly, as they were locked away, I believe there is also the fear for them of breaking out, the fear of the journey, the fear of advancing into new ground. Because we know, with hindsight, that their calling was via Pentecost to mass church planting and evangelism. Their calling was to chart territory they had never charted before, in the ups and downs of planting new churches. And it was a calling to profile in the community as they had never known it before. It was a calling to create what didn't yet exist from the deposits that had been put within them. And I believe that the unformed sense of this future destiny also shaped the fear which kept those doors locked. Because they couldn't see all of the shape of what was to come. But I believe that they experienced the heaviness, they experienced that unformed sense of a future destiny. And why did they feel it? Because the deposits of it were already within them. Jesus had been planting those seeds within them. Do you sometimes sense this creative pressure? Do you sometimes sense seeds, deposits that have been put within you that are unformed as yet? And yet they're there, calling, pushing into your future destiny. A creative pressure that sometimes excites and energizes like nothing else can do. That makes you feel alive. That makes you feel full of passion and full of energy like nothing else can do to you. But at other times breaks over you like a tidal wave that can drown you and make you want to run. Have you ever experienced that sense of seeds that have been put within you that are yearning to grow? And that the Spirit of God is watering and watering. And I believe as we go through this passage, it ends up with more than watering, but with a divine boot, but we'll get there in a minute. And so it was to this huddle behind locked doors that Jesus came and stood among them. He joined them. He identified with this place that they were in, this place of static, of inertia, of fear, of not moving, of wondering. He identified with this place and he came right into it. Why? Because I believe that he too had been in this place only a few days earlier. Late at night, in a garden, as the warmth of the day had ebbed away. And he went through his night vigil as he faced his own fear. He knew what it was to face fear. He knew what it was to face that sense of Father's destiny on his life. But he found the resource in prayer to break out. And he comes to us today too in this place, a place of challenges you already know to go back to. But also that sense that a deposit has been put in you and that there is a world to create that hasn't been there before. Woo! Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful that there is a massive world for us to create as the Church of God as we go out from this place? Deposits having been put within us, seeds that have been planted over many, many years. And the almighty sickle comes this week and says it's time for harvest. It's time to go back and to create a world that hasn't existed up to now. Why? Because we are following the God who created. And he is putting that creative spirit, energy, empowerment within each one of us as we go home. And I have to say, I'm on this journey myself. 17 years ago, we planted a church with very few young people. I was the youngest, I was 18, and my boyfriend at the time was the oldest, he was 24. We were all within that age bracket. We learnt many ups and downs of holding into a vision to create a community that will change lives. That was our vision. We didn't know how to do it. We didn't really know what it involved. But that was our vision. We had a challenge. We wanted to shift the spiritual atmosphere. It seemed really presumptuous, but that was our prayer. We wanted to bring social transformation wherever we could to our local community. But then a few years ago, God grew an urgency in me to create something new. And sometimes it's easy to create and pioneer once. But I believe the calling of God comes many times in our lives. And he says, pick up your tent and pioneer again. I was discipling a girl in the church, and she was raped in the roads right near to my house. She went to the police, which is a very unusual thing to do, but she decided she wanted to. And she went through all the process of reporting that incident. And I went through it with her, supporting her and caring for her as much as I was able. And I was so struck by the lack of support that the professional services were able to offer to her, which is no criticism of them, but there just weren't the services in our district to respond to her emotional needs rather than the legal situation. And God spoke to me and he said, you have to do something for this district because it's not enough just to look after those in church. But the support that you can give to those within the spiritual community, it's time to give it to the whole community. And so a vision has grown in me to create a service for people who've been sexually abused or who've been raped. And that's what we're working to do at the moment. I want to share with you not so much the vision, because God builds loads of different visions, and in a sense that's not the point. But what I want to share with you is the inner place, because that's the place where we all start from. And I have to be honest and say the inner place is a scary place for me, to create this service out of nothing. The questions come, can I do it? Can I really do it? Not just talk, not just vision, can I do it? Can I bear the strain? Emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. How will it affect our family? Where will the money come from? It's a scary place. And it's so much easier, isn't it, to live life behind those locked doors and just stay there, worshipping God, but stay there, static. But for all of us, there is a calling, I believe, to create what doesn't exist from the deposits put within you. And I believe that God is speaking to us this week. I believe he started right at the beginning to say he has already put deposits within so many of us here. And more have come this week, and it's been nurtured and it's been fanned into flame. But there is a calling to create with those deposits that have been put within you. I want to just give you a few examples. We've got this one couple in our church. They're just a very, very ordinary couple. And the deposit that God put within them was to create family for those without family. And what they've done is they've taken in one young person to live with them, somebody who has not experienced good family. And it's very easy to find people around in that situation. And they've just included that person in their family and loved them and had them live with them. For us as others, it's things that we do in groups. The young people in our church last year, we'd had a prophecy over our church many years ago that it would be a place of 24-hour prayer. Now, I have to tell you, we are useless at praying. You know, some people think we're good at some things, but prayer, that is one of our weakest points. We have never managed to be good at praying. Anytime we have a prayer meeting, practically nobody turns up except the leaders who are told that they have to. It's just something we're not very good at. And this thought of us being a place of 24-hour prayer was kind of, well, God, you know, if you've said it, then great, but we really don't know how to do this. And a few months ago, the young people in our church, they just said, stuff it, we're going to do it. Stuff talking about it, stuff thinking about it, praying about it, you know, wondering how it's going to happen, we're doing it. And they took a room in our building, and they said, this will be the prayer room. And at the beginning of September last year, they said, we're starting, and we'll draw up a rota, and we'll sign up, and we will cover for a whole month. We will pray. Or maybe it started with a week, I can't remember, whatever it started with. And they did it. And it was a fantastic inspiration for us older people to see they were just getting on with it. They were doing it. Why? Because the deposit was there, and they came to the conclusion. They said, now is the time for action. Let's just do it. Let's go for it. And they did, and it was wonderful. And then us slower ones caught up with them and joined them and helped them. It's scary when you face fears that you know, or fears that are unformed senses of future destiny. And we can spend weeks, months, even years, static, behind locked doors. And Jesus comes into this place. Let's read it. Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. After this, he showed them his hands and side. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Again, Jesus said, peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending with you. And with that, he breathed on them and said, receive the Holy Spirit. Jesus comes into this place of inertia, and he breathes peace. Don't look at the fear. Don't look at the pressures, the difficulties. But he does give us a focus to look at, because he knows we need that. And he says, take your eyes off all of that. And I want to ask us that we go on this journey as I speak about it. Whatever your fears are that I've taken time to talk about, take your eyes off those and look at Jesus. Look at me, he says. And then he directed them even more specifically as to what to look at. Verse 20, after he said this, he showed them his hands and side. Oh, I don't want to look at that, God. That's the horrible, gory stuff. Imagine it. His hands with holes in, with flesh torn. His side all gashing and pierced. God, I don't want to look at that. I want to look at your smiling face. I want to look at a sunset, a flower. I want to look at a child smiling. I don't want to look at that. And yet that's what he said, look at. And his hands and side graphically reminded them that suffering is not something to be afraid of. He has the power to gain victory over suffering and all types of difficulty. And that is what he speaks to us this morning. Look at my hands, look at my side. Look, I'm alive. Look, I've broken the power of every form of suffering, every form of death. It is not something we have to get locked behind. Be that real suffering, or be it anything that shuts us behind locked doors, that keeps us passive, that keeps us in inertia, that keeps us not effective. And he says, look, there's something on the other side. He has the power to take us through. And then verse 21, he says, as the Father has sent me, I am sending you. I'm sending you. It's not a question. Not at all. It's not, I wondered if you would consider it. Do you fancy popping out with me, my little puppet? Do you fancy coming? Do you fancy being sent? You could if you want to. Maybe next week, maybe next year, maybe when you got your degree, maybe when you're a bit older, maybe after your kids have grown up, maybe when you've retired and you're not working all hours. Do you fancy going with me? No. It's not a question. It's not a question at all. It's a commissioning, a statement, an encouragement. I am sending you. Go and create. Go forth and multiply and fill the earth with good things. Go and get on with it. I'm sending you. I'm not considering really what you think about it. Because if I consider that too long, I can see your knees are knocking behind locked doors. No, I'm sending you. Why? Because I have faith to send you, says Jesus. Why? Because he has the courage. Why? Because he has gone before us and he knows that it's possible. And note, it's as the Father sent me. There's a direct link between our commissioning and Jesus' nature. The only way to move out from behind the locked doors is to be directly linked with Jesus. And this direct link is open to all, indiscriminate, of age, of gender, of colour, of anything else that we can possibly think of to disqualify ourselves. And if you're anything like me, there's constant disqualifications going on in my mind. I'm too this, I'm too that. Somebody else would be much more this or much more that. But Jesus, it's not where he's ticking. That's not the conversation going on with him. Why? Because he has called every single believer, come and follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. It's not a calling just to be with Jesus. It's not a calling just to be friends. I'm sorry. It is friendship, it is relationship, but it's not just that. It's come and follow me, and I will make you, every single one of you, from the youngest to the oldest, I will make you fishers of men. He's got a purpose for us. He's got a journey for us. He's got seeds that he's put within us to grow. And so as the Father has sent me, I am sending you. Everything is possible when we're linked with Jesus. And with that, he breathed on them, verse 22. And he said, receive the Holy Spirit. Jesus pushes us out from behind the locked doors of fear, locked doors of comfort, locked doors of readjusting as we go home, locked doors of whatever it is for you. He pushes us out and he tells us he's sending us. He's saying this morning, be sent. Break out. Break out of the things that hold you back. Break out of the little words in your head that disqualify you, that discriminate against you. Break out and go on that journey of discovery that the disciples had to do, learning loads on the way as they planted churches with problems and mistakes as they went. But they went for it. Be sent. And Jesus' way of enabling this is to breathe on us his Holy Spirit. And I want to say to all of us, myself included, as we go home this morning, carrying all the deposits within our heart that God has put there, I want to say to us all, go, be sent. But just before you do, receive his Holy Spirit, or we will never manage it. Receive, then believe, and get on with it, and go and create. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Let's stand together if we're able, please.